Thank you. Thank you for all of you being here, coming here, you traveled all around the world just to be here. And that is so very important. Because one thing they were trying to do in the beginning is to actually isolate all of us. That's what they were trying to do. And my favorite unscrupulous WEF puppet is probably Justin Trudeau, and he coined it. They're just a small fringe minority having unacceptable views at that. It's a no-go. Well, I will have you know, I'm a proud member of that small fringe minority. But what were they actually doing? Well, they were instilling a sense of disenfranchisement, isolating people. And I'm particularly grateful that Mr. Christoph pointed that out in his presentation, because that was part of the game. They wanted to isolate us, because isolated people, it's called gaslighting triangulation, which is actually psychological abuse. They subjected us to a state of psychological warfare. That's what we had to deal with. But you know what? Looking at all of you, they did not succeed. Because globally, the networking began. And I'm so grateful and I feel so blessed to see so many people that I have had the pleasure to meet personally in these past 2 years. Thanks again for coming, because we actually are a big family now, and they have no idea how many of us there actually are. It's billions. But we are really up against a lot. You might have followed the work we have done with my colleagues and Ivan Sinčić, Christian Turhash in the COVID committee. And despite everything we shed light on, despite all the lies, despite all the false narratives, despite all the misinformation, we uncovered and actually forced them to having to admit to, despite all of that, they are still determined to pull through with their plan. We just reviewed the draft report of the COVID committee, and in its report, I can tell you, every single lie is being repeated. They do not stop. One example, the report is 56 pages long, contains 4,480 words. How many times do you think the word adverse side effect is mentioned? How many times? One single time. But not in the way you think it is. Make no mistake. I will tell you what it says. The committee requires the member states, the EU Commission, and the manufacturers of these mRNA injections, well, it doesn't say that there, but requires them to more clearly communicate adverse side effects in an orchestrated, concerted kind of way in order to, and that's the point they're trying to make, in order to prevent the spread of disinformation and fake news. That is what they're after. It's not about the adverse side effects. That is just one example in this report. Like I said, every single lie is being repeated. And as I have been saying, and unfortunately it turned out to be true, this whole COVID madness, this so-called pandemic, it was just a test balloon, a gigantic test balloon. Well, for what, you ask? Well, to see how far they could go, to see what exactly they would have to do to get free individuals in a free and democratic society to consent to being forced into compliance. That's what they were trying to establish. That's what they were trying to figure out. And they have figured it out. Trust me, they are much smarter now. The goal ultimately is to transform our free and democratic societies, into totalitarian societies. Their goal is to strip each and every one of us of our fundamental rights of freedom, democracy, the rule of law. They want to get rid of all of this. And they're robbing us of our identity. Whether it be our national identity, our cultural identity, they won't even stop to rob us of our sexual identity. The very core of who we are, they don't even stop there. This whole COVID thing had never anything to do with public health. It never had anything to do with breaking waves. It always had to do with breaking people in order to make us a part of a mindless, malleable mass, which they can totally control, and we will be completely dependent upon this globalitarian elite. That's what they have in store for us. You're sitting in the EU Parliament, but you can take any kind of international governing body or organization. It is no longer by the people, for the people. From now on, it will be by the globalitarian elites, for the globalitarian elites, and nothing else. So I'm really imploring the people and all the peoples around the world, for God's sake, stop giving your democratically elected governments the benefit of the doubt. They are not deserving of that. They are not. Stop rationalizing whatever your government is doing. Stop rationalizing and come up with some good intentions. They have no good intentions. Never. As I said before, in the entire history of mankind, there has never been a political elite concerned about the well-being of regular people. And it isn't any different now. Why should it? Stop giving them the benefit of the doubt. Because I can tell you, you cannot comply your way out of a tyranny. It is impossible. Trying to do so, you will only feed a gigantic alligator in the hopes of being eaten last. But guess what? Your turn will come, and then you will be the one swallowed up. I also have to ask the people, end your silence. Speak up. For God's sake, stop complying. Start rebelling. They're out to get you if you do not resist. I would also urge you to stop voting for those who inflict this psychological abuse on you, who mock you for their own good. And here and then, I think of a quote by Lenin, actually, no less. He once said, "It is true, freedom is so precious that it has to be carefully rationed." Lenin. And that's what they're doing in this place, believe it or not, exactly that. And that's what's happening all over the world right now, especially in the Western democracies. Freedom are being carefully rationed. Well, I will not go by that. That is not my motto. I prefer Albert Camus, because I have decided, in order to deal with this unfree world, to defy this unfree world, I have decided to become so absolutely free that my very existence is an act of rebellion.
And that's what we all need to do.